We still need Wendy. I still need you.
I'm just going to ask one more time for anybody who wants to speak during public comment. You do have to fill out a comment card. That's the only opportunity that audience members have to speak during the meeting.
They need to turn it into us.
Yeah.
Anybody know how to turn that mic on? Besides Krista?
Do you want?
It's the same as,
Is it
we don't have public comments till later, but.
something that's at the base of that?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, we are looking for some tech help. If everything goes south, that'd work.
Okay, we are ready to begin. I call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all board members are present. We're going to begin this evening with a business meeting because we do have some field trips that we need to take care of. Before we get started with that though, for the business meeting, we do need to proceed with approval of the agenda. I will go ahead and make the motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I'm going to ask that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first action item on the agenda is the overnight wrestling trip to Heber Overgaard, January 28th through 29th. So this is the wrestling team's trip. It's
An overnight
tournament followed by sectionals. I was trying to find out what match it was. Are there any questions or discussion for this item?
Now, look like all the paperwork was in place. So
Yeah.
that's always nice to see. Mr. Salzman always does a nice job.
And it
And
was
I'll
a
go.
nice job.
Because I'll be
There were-
there.
Yeah.
There were
good.
two of them.
I'll be there both weekends.
Do we have to do each one separately?
I know they were presented as
We can do.
Yeah,
we can do
separate
together.
action items.
They're separate action items.
Yeah,
They
Right,
they're listed
yeah.
as separate action items, even though they're kind of bundled together with the same.
And Salzman did a paper on each one
Yes.
of them.
Yes. So I will go ahead and move that we approve the wrestling team overnight trip for January 28th through 29th, 2022. We have a second from Wendy. So all those in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And now the next action item is the wrestling trip, February 3rd through 4th. Do we have a motion for that?
I move that we approve of the overnight wrestling trip for the February 3rd and 4th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Those were all the action items on this evening's business agenda. So I will go ahead and move that we adjourn the business meeting.
So move. I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning the business meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Business meeting adjourned, and we will go ahead and call our work study session to order, and we will start with approval of that agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
I will second, and then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we will now begin our work study session with public comment. We do have 4 public comments here. Mrs. Rakowski, will you please read the public comment statement?
I sure will. Call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment. Time limits may be allocated on public comment at the discretion of the board president for the board to efficiently complete its business. The board reserves the right to prohibit any comments made in a discourteous or threatening manner. Complaints about specific individuals, students, or personnel are discouraged. Personnel issues should be directed to the appropriate staff member or administrator per district policy. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01, capital H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the first comment card we have is from Tara Lamar. Tara, will you please come up to the podium for us? And as a reminder, we do have a 3-minute time limit, and when you get to 30 seconds, I will let you know.
Oh,
You have to go this way.
Yeah.
The one
Unless
with
you
face
really
plant
want to,
coming
yeah.
over. And here, just make sure the mic is
All right. I don't really have anything prepared. I just wanted to take a moment and welcome Dr. Sweeney.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming during this very unique time. This is something I've never seen or experienced, so I find it all a very interesting learning curve. I wanted to thank our board for doing something that is so unique and continuing to be clear and transparent. I had to come to you with concerns, and so I thought it was important to say something positive to you. I hope that whatever the situation is, that I trust in it. I trust the process. I thank you guys for the process. I hope that your directive continues to be as clear as it has been. And that's really all I had to say. I just wanted to thank you guys and welcome Dr. Sweeney, because it's nice to have the confidence and see something positive coming in ourselves. So that's it. I'm going to run to sports. But thank you guys.
All right, our next comment card is from Madison Reed. Welcome.
Ditto what she said. I wanted to thank you guys for taking action. I know that a lot of parents and staff feel heard. It's never comfortable to be put in the position to scrutinize someone that you work with and someone that you've become acquainted with in the process of side-by-side service. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I'm here today to ask for some continued accountability backed by action, because we're not done. Something I've seen trending in society lately and in our schools and possibly even in this situation is the desire to protect the offender. We live in an innocent until proven guilty society, which is a great thing, but we've become a society that essentially encourages delinquent behavior in some ways by removing consequences for that detrimental behavior. We've become so outwardly focused that we shy away from anything that might offend the actual offender and in the process sweep the victim or victims under the rug. If you want an example of why this doesn't work, just look at the behavioral issues in our schools here in the district. Character development needs to be brought back into public education. Accountability has to be practiced in business and in social relationships. Bad behavior has to be called what it is, and punishment can't be seen as some kind of aggressive reaction when it's the appropriate channel for social behavior. I tell my kids all the time if they want to feel good about themselves, they have to make good choices. Choices have consequences that end up restricting them and leading to unhappiness. This is one of those life lessons that are much better learned early. I could speak on this all day. I've learned a lot through experiences, study, and speaking with others who have experienced more than I or things that are different than I have. But the last thing I want to do is offer some encouragement. We have a new interim superintendent, and I've heard great things about him. I'm excited to get to know you.
I say some of those are true.
I think we have time to turn things around in really positive ways, even in this school year. I hope that we make bold moves to do what's right, to do what we know is best for our youth. I hope we don't cave to social pressure and continue with policies and programs that have no tangible benefit. There are real solutions, and then there are solutions that look good on paper, and we need real solutions. Thank you.
Next is Sharon Moner. Please come up. Welcome.
Hi, it's so great to see everyone and so happy to see Dr. Sweeney again. I'm Sharon Moner. I was a preschool special ed teacher for more than 16 years here. Loved working in this district. And I put on my form that I was really just representing myself. But truly I'm representing the students in special education, the parents, the preschool parents, because I feel like while maybe they're not being misled by words, they're being misled by not, the information is getting out to them. There is a special education teacher that's providing services, and I think that they think that their gen ed teacher is doing this. Some of them also think that they're in a self-contained classroom just like they were last year. So I'm sure things can be fixed, but I think that it's being dishonest by omitting information. And I haven't been in contact with very few parents. I've tried to stay out of it because I just felt like that wasn't really my place. But I don't feel like anyone is standing up for my former students, and that really is sad. Also, I know that there's such a big hole with teacher shortages. It's really an issue, not only in this district, but statewide, countrywide. But I've also heard, and I don't go on the Fountain Hills Connection, but I heard it in the parking lot here a couple of school boards ago, where children who were on IEPs were told to stay home while other kids came to school because there wasn't anyone to be with them. And that's wrong, that's denying them faith. So I hope that things can turn around and make this district as good as it was before. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last comment card is from Tina Leveda. Hi.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Yes,
briefly.
welcome.
The Fountain Hills Times came out last Wednesday, and they talked in there about 3 of the parcels that you all are considering selling. And a lot of us homeowners on Cavern Drive are very concerned about the parcel on that street because of our views that we have there. So I'm just asking a little bit more of explanation of that further on down. I know that this is early. I did make a call to the Fountain Hills Unified School District, and they said that, I don't know who I talked to, but they said that this is in early stages. And so before, I'm not sure where you're at with that, so as it gets down more in conversation, further explanation of those sales of those parcels would be really appreciated for lots of us that live there. I don't know about the homeowners and the other parcels, of course. We're just more concerned about ours at the moment. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
No more public comments? That's the end of public comment, yeah, thank you. Okay, we will proceed on with informational reports. And we have first up FHEA feedback from Mr. Buckley and teachers. Just for context, Mr. Buckley was here and gave us public comment at the last meeting, but as the board knows, during public comment, we're limited with what we can say and questions we can ask if it's not an item on the agenda. So I would like to make sure that we have Mr. Buckley as the FHEA representative come and be an actual agenda item so we can have a bit more discourse back and forth. So welcome, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity. We're really excited to participate in more of a dialogue. And so what we did is, so I had a meeting that was open for everyone, non-members and members. We didn't distinguish. We also, so we were online, this was like last Thursday. And we had about 20 to 25 people jump on and off. And then we also have our Meet and Confer survey. And we told them like that's mainly for what we're working on for next year. So, you know, Dr. Sweeney and I and a group of individuals will be discussing a lot of those. So we took those same working condition issues and kind of posed them as for right now. What are some things that we see? And so I just kind of have a spreadsheet that lists some bullet points to kind of go through. And so the first thing was class load or caseload. And so we have the last couple of weeks, of course, has been a really peak for COVID, of course, within our district. And I know that our board is very well aware of that. We've ended up having multiple classes in lecture halls and in libraries to cover. And I put some people in some situations I think they weren't very comfortable with. As far as possibly increasing the spread. Then we also had some issues with large caseloads for special education. I think because of our staffing issues in special education, we're really riding our current staff really, I think, to a breaking point, if I'm being honest with you. And then we talked about some professional development, and we had a lot of teachers that feel that we don't have adequate professional development for the tools that we've been asked to implement. So for an example on this, I know with PLP, we've, you know, a few of us in the district have learned how to use it and then tried to train others. We also, like I know I'm one of the only instructional coaches in the district, and I was the only instructional coach at the beginning of the year for that. And so that was very difficult because as somebody who's trying to put everything in, you know, you want to train as many people as you can, but you still have 100 kids and a 40-hour teaching job to take care of as well. You don't want to slight anybody in there. But then we also, so that was difficult given that that was a district training at the beginning of the year where we were on Zoom with our trainer, you know, and our leader. And we've talked to the district office, and that's has been expressed. Mentor program for new staff has been a concern. We just haven't had much mentorship for them. I know from an onboarding standpoint, we've had issues where at the middle school we've had 2 new teachers in January, and they both went at least one school day, if not multiple school days, without login information for Power School, PLP. And so it's very difficult as an instructional coach to do anything in training because they don't have access to anything that I need them to have access to. So that has been another issue with that. Another one was IEPs and 504 meetings are too late to really help students, was one comment we had in there. And just not necessarily having the access or maybe the clarity of some of those documents before having those children in our class so that we can provide them with adequate service at the beginning of the year. Then unclear and ever-changing policy and procedures was one. And I think we have a disconnect between what's mandatory to use for teachers and what are tools. And so as a teacher, you know, and I'll kind of speak to this one a little bit for myself, it's very difficult to feel satisfied when you don't know, like, you want at the end of the day to be like, job well done. And our teachers aren't able to get that satisfaction of job well done because there's not clarity on what has to be done and what can be done. And so that was a big concern as well. Then we had clear templates and formats for special education paperwork. Really, we're really struggling there, I think, as general education teachers to help out. And then there was COVID, not enough substitutes. They were thinking like maybe we could have like some substitute incentives. It has been told to the teachers, the change in sub-pay, that, you know, we will be paid and back paid for each substitution throughout the year. So that is much appreciated. We're really happy with that. And then the contact tracing has been very difficult, especially where it's a suggestion. So as a teacher, you provide all your class rosters and your seating charts, but then that really gets filtered to like 2 people. And so then they're having to do all of that work, which then of course they can't because they have regular jobs on top of that and responsibilities. So then we're having to go back through and do a lot of that contact tracing, which I think wasn't as much of an issue last year because you saw like there was a reason for that. You know, those students were told, and we understand that there's that awareness, but it's having very little effect on our classrooms and it's taking up a lot of time. Then let's see, COVID, the mitigation and protocols, as far as teachers, we had a lot of gray area that we faced with who was supposed to be out and who had to be out. So at one point in the year, we were told that if you were positive but vaccinated and asymptomatic, then you weren't to come, or then you still worked. And now, of course, like that's changed, but people weren't really aware of that at the beginning, and we definitely had teachers on campus that, you know, I don't know, it was up to them. It seemed like it was up to them, and they felt like that was a lot of responsibility, and they felt like if I don't show up, then my class isn't being covered and I'm failing kids. But if I do show up and I give, you know, I spread this thing, that's also has that impact. And so there was a lot of issues there. And we did have some staff members that felt pressured to show up when they really probably shouldn't have been there at all. Before I go on, I realized I was just running through all of that.
Yeah, I'm
Taking
writing
lots of
this down.
notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the questions.
I would like, there's probably a couple that I'll come back to, just for
Okay.
some examples, just to make sure that we're understanding what you're saying and not misinterpreting it. But if you want to keep going, that's totally
I
fine.
think, yeah, if we have all the information, then you may answer some of our questions as you go. So, yeah, I've just kind of been taking notes too, and
Mhm.
so we'll get you at the end.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's a lot. So then we talked about workload within school hours. And so, because of course, you know, outside of school hours, we actually didn't have any comments on workload outside of school hours. And I know that we've been really trying to push for, you know, do as much as you can here so that you can move on, and not like just feel like you're living every day or every moment with the burden of what we do. So within school hours, we've had teachers asked to take on administrative duties. Now, I don't know where exactly that one came from. I will say that like, I know there's a few of us that are going for admin license. So if we're taking on administrative, that happens. But I do think we have some people that are a little uncomfortable with that. And then paras have been asked to cover classes without certified staff. We've also had, I don't know if I mentioned it under PD, but paras getting no training, or they said they have gotten no training to best serve kids. And so that's concerning that we have adults in the building that don't feel like they've had the adequate training to do the job that we've asked them to do. Multiple teachers have been asked to work 6/5 and have no prep hour. And I know this is mainly a high school thing, and I know that that is due to the difficulty of getting teachers within the district. I also know that those are contracted positions, but I think that we're in a situation where we have so many of them at 6/5. I really fear that you're gonna lose a lot of those teachers due to the fact that they feel they can go someplace else and not have to work 6/5. And so they are being, paid adequately and things, but as somebody trying to look at retention and seeing the revolving door as one of the main issues we have as a district, I think that's showing that we have dedicated staff that we're starting to push a little thin. And then we have, made some suggestions there. Student behaviors have been one of the main issues that we've seen. So we've had poor behavior with the substitutes. Substitutes have not had the training in PBIS and some of the other behavior management we've had. So we have a lot of issues with with being able to keep new subs, throughout the building, just because we don't feel like they've been adequately prepared. The bathrooms have been vandalized consistently throughout the year. We also have students wandering around halls around campus when they should be in class.
All 3 campuses, or is this specific to one?
I do believe that is multiple campuses.
Okay.
I know I can't speak to all, but I do believe that's multiple. I know that we have had that at the middle school as well. Then we do have a lot of teachers concerned with PBIS and its effectiveness. They are feeling like there's no real training. And I will say that as somebody who helped write the PBIS stuff that we did, we've consistently asked for more time to train and just have not been given the time. At the beginning of the year in service, teachers are given about 1 hour. Generally speaking, that should be around 4 to 8 hours. Like that should really be a half day to a full day, and we're putting that into an hour. Another practice that PBIS generally does is you break down the data once a month, and as a staff, and you look at where the areas are and things like that. That's not happening. So we don't have that at the site and school levels for our teachers to be on the lookout for. And then tardiness has been a major issue with our kids. And I know we had some issues as far as whether that was supposed to be a minor under the PBIS system or if, or what, we weren't sure what it was. So that's been an issue. Of course, attendance has been an issue. Some of that, I think, is just the climate that we're in for things. And then we also had some duty-free time. People did not believe that was being held to, that it was being held and respected. And so some of that comes from subbing, but we've also had multiple, there's just been duty issues with, it's just not consistent throughout the 3 campuses. And when you're issuing contracts and paying all 3 campuses equal pay, you have elementary school teachers that are being asked to do before and after school duty, whereas like a middle school teacher may only be asked to do an after school duty for half the year. And so that has been some issues there. Others were lack of communication. It's kind of difficult as a staff when we're being communicated with at the same time parents are. Because, you know, if you haven't checked your email, you know, and the time that they have, you know, you're getting questions that you're just not able to answer. So that's been an issue. And then IT, I know they work really hard over there, and I think that's an understaff issue. We just don't have the IT support that is necessary when we have essentially one-to-one campuses. So there was a lot.
That's okay, we're happy to hear it.
Will you send us this, you said you had a bullet pointed spreadsheet?
Yeah, so you will get, I realized that tonight, I was like, I have this here. So what I'll do is share that when I get back to my computer.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfectly organized, set up, it can just be, just so that we have your list with our list, so we can check things off.
Right.
I'll start with a sort of easy question, and this is like my world. We're getting funding to implement PBIS through the Department of Education. Who is in charge of that? Do they know that we are not, that we are out of line with the grants? Because that is, they should be the ones. It's not, because we have those grant dollars, we need them to come in because we're not fulfilling, it's not fidelity to the model. They need to come in, and that would be something that we could do outside of the school district to fix that right away. Do you have contact people for that? What is the?
So I have pretty constant communication with our PBIS team. I do know that we're supposed to have visits. They'll be coming to the campus and interviewing students and teachers about different PBIS things. I also know that our district PBIS team is very concerned about that, and that some of our teacher representatives don't feel that they have it within their power for that to be successful. So they're put in this stressful situation of, my name's on this, we don't know if we're going to pass this, and I don't have the power to make sure we could pass this.
If you could get me, or if someone could get me the name, the principal investigator's name at the Department of Education,
Oh.
that would be helpful. That can be fixed. And you do not have to participate in any evaluation, any data collection like that. That is a voluntary action. But the money that we're getting, you do need to fulfill the requirements of what they're asking you to do. But that data collection piece, besides the documents that we give them on infractions, teachers technically do not have to participate in interviews or surveys. That is something that you have to consent to do.
Mr. Markle, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I know when our PBIS coaches last week went through their training, we offered up a time in February for ADE to come in, and they said they're currently in a holding pattern right now because of COVID. So they're gonna try to get into schools maybe by May this year, but they're not promising any visits this year.
So, yeah, if we could find out what kind of money we have that they've given us so far, but if they're not fulfilling their end of the bargain, we don't need to continue to fulfill our end of the bargain. I think we just need to see what kind of funding we have in terms of the grant office, because that's ridiculous. They should not be in a holding pattern until May. It's not fair to our district.
Mr. Markle, since PBIS started at your school, you guys were kind of the guinea pigs on all this. How effective do you think that program is?
Well, we were actually having that conversation before we came over here. I feel like that when we started this year, because we had all our kids on campus, we kind of saw PBIS as a magic pill, so to speak. So we're going to roll this out, and all the kids are going to be excited about falcon feathers and drawings, and it felt like there was a spike of behaviors because we were documenting everything and going over it in Swiss and things like that. Since we returned in January, we've seen a sort of decrease in behaviors and amount of referrals that are being written. And so we were having that conversation of, is it that everyone matured over?
You wish, right?
Is it
Santa
that,
brought the magic
you know,
dust.
we're averaging 75 to 80 kids out for a call various reasons. Some of our high flyers have gone to a different method of learning. So I think it takes time. The effectiveness of eventually beginning to build relationships with kids and exemplify what we want you to do and expect you to do, I think is gaining traction. But I think it took a little bit of time for our staff to figure out it's not, it's not a magic.
It's not the end all be all.
It's not a magic pill.
Well, and it requires work and diligence, right?
It does,
And
yeah.
consistency.
Yeah.
But I
And
guess
the
my.
teachers aren't trained.
Right, if they're not trained, if they're not getting enough professional development, but like you said, like your high flyers, maybe have gone to an alternate method of learning, like, I don't know, my kids were K through 12 here, so I've been through the character counts at McDowell Mountain with Bobcat Fridays, I've been through the Falcon Feathers at the middle school, I've been through the, when Dr. Jagodzinski was here, he made, different levels so that kids could earn rewards. He wanted to do like a lounge, kind of like, I don't want to call it the good kid lounge, but for kids that excelled in their behavior and needed rewarded. He wanted to have rewards for them that were a little bit out of the box. And so I've seen all of that. And I guess with PBIS, yeah, if we don't have enough professional development, that's a huge issue. But the second thing is PBIS is not for every kid, and if you have a child that has constant behavior issues and, maybe violence or, racial or whatever it may be, they probably don't care about your Falcon Feathers. So how do we get past that? I guess that's my concern, is that a lot of the behavior issues that we hear about and that we've received in these emails, a Falcon Feather's not going to fix it. So are we only using PBIS? Is it only going to be for, a certain spectrum of kids? Yeah. And if so, that's fine. But what are we doing for those other behavior issues to protect our teachers and other students?
Sure. And then I think the district I came from was big on throwing around the word restorative practices. And much in the same light here, I feel like we believe it's either this, punitive consequences, or PBIS, restorative practices over here, and we throw consequences out the window, which isn't true. And we're living somewhere in the middle of, trying to help students, help young adults figure out right from wrong. I would say for as many kids that maybe don't care about PBIS and it's not working, there's a handful of kids over here that we've seen really positive success who might live over in this world. And so it's just constantly finding that balance point, because I hear it too when people call my office and say PBIS isn't working. Kids need consequences.
And some do.
And they do.
But I also think that it shows a lack of understanding of what PBIS is. Because it is taking away the no, and telling children appropriately what they should be doing. And it's not just about Falcon Feathers and rewards. It is, instead of just telling a kid, screaming at a kid, stop doing that, it's telling the child what to do. We're teaching them to do something positive. And I think part of it is our people don't understand. And clearly, I've seen it work great at some schools, and it's not going to work everywhere with every kid. And my fear is that we've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's been at the middle school for 3 years, and I hate to just kick it to the curb because we don't have the proper. Parents don't know, because parents also have to, it should be consistent. If we can talk to parents about what they can do at home to also promote these things, like you're leaving this house, give me ways that you're going to be respectful. Let's talk about being a leader. Let's talk about these things. Then, I agree. I'm not saying we keep it, but I feel like we just have not.
Then we need to do a better job with PD.
We haven't had anything. I mean,
Right.
let's be honest. We went from oh my God, capture kids' hearts where they thought shaking someone's hand was gonna change the behavior of a kid. I mean, you know, I feel like it's, you know, I wanna support teachers and I wanna support you all because I can't even imagine the situation you're in. But I do think getting that appropriate PD and if it's not working with
Yeah, we
Department of
can't
Ed,
say
we
it
need to
doesn't
change
work
it.
if we haven't
Yep.
even half implemented it
Right.
correctly.
We have not implemented it
If
correctly.
I may.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
So a lot of what TJ has brought up, I've heard over the last 3 days, and that the consistent message of not being trained, not just in PBIS, but in some other things. And, you know, I heard thrown to the wolves, thrown in the fire, those sorts of expressions. And so I have a meeting with the principals on Monday, and I'm putting together some topics for that. And that's one of them, of you know, being sure we're able to get people properly trained in the tools that you're using and in the programs. And I know in the conversations I've had here, there is not a common understanding of what PBIS is. There's not a common understanding of what Beyond Textbooks is. And those are going to be two priorities that we talk about of how do we build that common understanding among staff, students, and others. And, you know, I will just say my experience, I was at a PBIS school the last round as a principal, and there were absolutely consequences for inappropriate behaviors that took place. And, you know, it worked really, really well, but it was a staff that had been doing it a long time. They had monthly, there was a team, a PBIS team that met, went over the data, where were problems happening, identifying who those people were. So, you know, it takes work and it takes finesse and it takes massaging for it to go. You can't just say, hey, we're a PBIS school, and off you go. So that's something we'll take up here. Personally, from what I've heard over the last few days, I think it's kind of like we need a reset on what it is and what it isn't, and you know, build that understanding with staff.
Yeah, because there's
Okay.
certainly
Yeah.
consequences
I
that
do
are
want to make
supposed to
one other
happen.
comment based
Yeah.
on something TJ said, and, you know, I heard from at all three buildings at all different levels of concerns about the lack of consistency amongst the adults on the sites for student behaviors. And people wandering around and other stuff. And I asked a few, I said, well, where are they coming from? You know, I mean, there's an adult ownership of this that we have to have.
Yes,
That
yes.
if students are out wandering around during class time, somebody's letting them out the door to go wander around during
Right.
class time. And so I think that too comes down to building that understanding of what are our expectations here school-wide of how students are going to be during class and other things. So, you know, it's certainly issues that staff are talking about, but some of the solutions are common sense solutions.
Yeah.
Well, and I encountered that at McDowell. I was at McDowell the other day dropping something off, and so I did my little walk around, and there was a student, and he was just wandering, and I said to him, where are you supposed to be? And he was like nobody had ever asked him that before, and I'm like, and he's like, in class. You know, back you go, like, you know, you can't be any more than like second grade. What are you doing out here? And so you're right, that's common sense. You know, they've got to stay in their classes, and we've got to figure out as adults how to make that work.
I mean, and part of it is we're short-staffed, so we
Right.
don't have the people walking through the
We don't have
hallways
the
that might
aides and-
otherwise. And I want to make sure that, you know, as professional development is actually being provided, that our teachers are compensated
Yes.
for that,
Right.
that professional development. But also, if Department of Ed is unable to fulfill their end of the grant requirements, then I think that shifts the conversation quite a bit, because one of the reasons we chose to do it was because of that grant money that should be paying to support these efforts.
One thing I did want to mention when it comes to professional development, and we see it more so with PBIS, another major concern that we've had is that, like, for our PBIS team, our district team they get trained all the time, and we've had them out of the building or attached to computers getting trained 3 days in the last like 2.5 weeks. And we're talking the peak of COVID. And when you're taking a PBIS teacher, a leader of PBIS, you're not just taking a teacher, you are taking a teacher that has built those relationships and centers those kids. And now you're taking essentially our top teachers out of the building and replacing them with subs. And then you have, on top of the already short-staffed sub problem that we have. And so we definitely, that's part of the problem there. And then we have had a lot of issues with, I know that there are things that admin and counselors need to be trained on, and those professional developments have to happen. But the amount of days that we have had where people outside of the classroom that we need support from are sitting in trainings attached to a computer, and that kid is probably wandering the hallway because they were sent to a person who is sitting in the training and now they have to go back, and we don't have anybody to securely bring that kid back. You just kind of get told, hey, you have to, I have to go back now, okay, and of course that kid's gonna take 10 minutes with
The long route back to class.
Right, the scenic route. So,
So we need to find a balance there.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So in the elementary school especially, I teach high school, but parent communication, in my case, makes life so good. First sign of a problem either with academics or with discipline, and I'm on the phone or Zoom, or wherever it takes to be with a parent, and I have yet to have any problems with that from a parent standpoint. They're 100% behind. But I've been in situations where that's not the case, and that doesn't work. So my question is, what kind of, I don't want to say policy, but regulation do we have for teachers when it comes to regularly communicating with their parents?
So we have tried to get into the process of a team communication once a week. I will say that did not happen in a lot of cases. We've also had where so for PBIS, every time you give a minor, it's a phone call. But a minor may not be minor is not supposed to be a big deal. Minor is supposed to be, you were distracting class, stop, redirect, and move on. But now we're having to go fill out this form, make a parent phone call and or email, and so it's becoming some of the I don't know. So I'm thinking in a lot of ways it's a lot of legwork for that little.
Why did it become that way? What made it that way?
I was not originally written that way, and I can say that for a fact because I personally wrote that aspect of that. And then, so at the beginning of when we first did it at the middle school, it wasn't that. It was a Google form that we filled out, and the second, it was after, so you had a warning, and then you had, okay, now I'm gonna actually have a minor. Then the third time's the phone call. And then for a major, you'd call a phone call, or you'd make the phone call home. And then some point in this training, when the grant came in, things kind of lifted.
But did we change that? Did our district change that, or did the trainers change that? Who changed that?
Our district team would have changed that under the guidance of the new training. So, because we did have a change in training, we had originally, it wasn't through ADE, and it was separate. And so with the original program brought into the middle school was not the same person training us that now is over the training.
So if you could be filling out those forms because they're collecting data on the efficacy of
Right.
this. And if that's the case, we need to find out, there's a point where you can say, I'm not gonna fill out these forms anymore. If it's truly to help and to collect data so that you can make decisions, then I guess that's a different conversation with the whole team.
Well, and I think because you have that paperwork pile up, that's why I think you're not seeing a lot of minors get written.
Yeah.
Because, and I've had minors written where then it gets turned in and, I have somebody come back to me that's no, that's not a minor at all. But a minor is a teacher decision. A minor is not an administrative decision. So then as an adult, why am I going to write a minor? And why? Because then I'm calling parents and I'm doing all this legwork, and then we just got our legs cut out from under us because Now am I supposed to call that parent back and be like, hey, I'm sorry, but actually I made the mistake? And then for me as a teacher, how am I supposed to have that relationship with that parent? Because now if I'm gonna have an issue with the parent, who's to say that the parent doesn't then say, oh, you're overreacting because you see back in September when you did this, it didn't work anyways. And so there's a lot of that stuff. Just to give you, I know that's really into the weeds,
No, that's good.
but I think that's a lot of where the disconnect is coming.
And having been a parent on the other side of the phone, just a couple, 10 times, I would say that, parents need to know what to do with that information. And I think that if we're really gonna implement this with the gusto that I think we're hoping to, we need to provide families the information of what is a minor. If you get a phone call, these are the reasons why. And here are some suggestions for a consequence, or this is what that means, or whatever it
conversation that
is.
you have with your student about.
Because, I don't know if all parents, if you're gonna build that bridge between home and school, you need to provide kind of
Common
information
language
what's
and
to do.
Right,
common
and
understanding.
parents may not understand that, so,
Because they've heard, oh, I can't believe it, big deal, so my kid was acting up in class. Well, actually, it is a big deal. But, we've all heard it from, and, so then what does that actually mean if a teacher calls and says these things as a parent for you to understand? And I think that's on us to provide that information.
So more professional development for our staff, but also some development, communication for our families, so.
Years ago, when we were twice the size we are now, we had as many as 2 social workers employed in the district that could not necessarily help staff, but parents. And they spent the bulk of their time with parents, in many cases at their home, with the students. And that really worked well, because we were experiencing some similar situations back in those days. And we got some financial support from the tribe, and that really turned a corner for a lot of parents who just were lost. It happens. And if you don't have that going on at the home, we only have them for 6 or 7 hours a day, and the parents has them, for the rest of that time period. And but that did help. So I know that we're half the size we were back then, and that's not a possibility as much as it was. But I hope that we can look for something along those lines to help parents, at least point them in our direction where there might be some help.
God, there's a lot here. So I would say, I don't think we have enough time in this meeting to continue this, but my concerns also workload within school hours. I think pairs is separate, but teachers that are working 6-5s without prep hour, they're getting compensated. But if teachers are also being asked to provide after-school duty, that's not going to be a 6-5, but they are actually providing extra services to our schools. So I think we need to really drill down into both classroom hours, and when you say administrative work, what do you mean like paperwork wise? Do you mean discipline? Like what is it that teachers being asked to do that is considered administrative?
That I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
Just to kind of show that this really is like a lot of different
Yeah, no,
voices.
that's
It's
great.
not
And
necessarily
we appreciate it, yes.
right. And so I will seek further clarification from that on
Well,
that.
I know at McDowell, they've had a lot of turnover in their front office. So I'm sure some of those teachers probably got pulled into the front office. They needed a registrar. I think they've been through 2 registrars, that they were very short-staffed. So it may have come out of there, so.
And when a teacher or any staff member comes out of our district, we've never had resources to really do what we wanted to do ever. Just to give you an example, where I'm at, first and second year teachers are required to spend, and they get paid for 2 weeks of training on everything from the CIS to the management system in the classroom. And yet you just talked about give them an hour. That's the scale we're living with here. And I think, not to put the superintendent on the spot or anything, where the money might come from, because I know that you can't just expect new people to just donate their time before they start teaching. Although we did write contracts for first year's teachers that included an extra week for the same amount. But I think it just requires some more work to make sure that, especially in the middle of the year, like we've experienced here in the last couple of months, to just say, okay, here's your room and here's the key, I'll get to you, as soon as I talk to somebody who has one. That's a disaster. I would hate to be in that position, but if we can finally get caught up where over the course of the summer, we put a team together of new teachers that we can actually give them the time it takes to understand what we are here, the community, and some of the tools, like you said, I think those are sometimes, set aside. You'll learn those as you go. Well, no, these tools, first of all, cost money. They take an investment in money and time. And if you don't give people the time to learn the effective use of those tools, they're at a disadvantage.
Well, and as an example for in-service to kind of show what we're looking at, we have 4 days of in-service where a teacher, so then 2 of those days are voluntary. So our teachers are walking in with, our returning teachers are walking in with 2 days off of, for PLP, IXL, PBIS, you name it, 2 days. And I came from Glendale before this, and we had a new teacher, understand, new teacher week, and we were paid separately for that. And then that was 1 week, and then we had another week just for everyone. And
you had a great induction program. Glendale has one of the best.
we had a great one. And
We
and
don't
so
have that here.
right, and I think we could. I think there are, because some of that's resource, but then some of that is just a little movement of a schedule, maybe a stipend here or there, to really move those things around. But you can't train people to run a pandemic, a classroom in the middle of a pandemic on 2 days of training.
But these are all good things that you should, the 6/5, the extra duties, that differ from McDowell to the middle school to the high school, new staff training, things like that. That should all be discussed at Meet and Confer. Like, that's really what Meet and Confer is, that you guys have to hash this out. And so admin has to be open to listening to that these are issues. And so if that's truly an issue that McDowell is doing, before duty and after duty, but then the middle school kind of doesn't have to do that, and then the high school, there may be reasons why, but nonetheless, that's the perfect time to say, look, at McDowell, this is what we want. At the middle school, this is what we want. And then, find a meeting of the minds there, so.
And then we'll say we're really excited for Meet and Confer. We had 53 responses to our survey, which is up from 30 last year.
That's excellent.
We have very pointed questions that I think will be able to give us great feedback. We're in the process of looking through that, and of course tomorrow we have our first meeting with Dr. Sweeney. So we are really excited for that. And I think we have a lot of teachers talking because I think they realize that this is where we need to do this, and they're ready to. And they see that there's that support ready to move on some of these things so that we can have a better school year experience
Yes, this is the
collectively as a
time.
community. than
Use
we
their
have so far.
voices, they have to, we certainly want to hear from you, and we want to know when there are problems, and we want to help correct those things. But teachers have to speak up too, and they have to use their voices, and they have to let us know when there's a problem, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Absolutely.
So, this is all great information, and I'm so excited that you came last time, and then you've come back now, and we've been able to hear that open conversation. Things aren't perfect right now. We so appreciate our teachers that show up every day, and we know that you're all spread extremely thin. We're hoping that gets better. Like, some things can be fixed. Some things are just COVID. We're sorry, but they're COVID. But, the state's trying, they're making substitutes be able to work. They're not holding them to the 120 days anymore, so that'll give other options for substitutes. So, we talked about maybe having substitute, like you said, some incentives for substitutes. Do we pay for fingerprinting cards? How do we get more people interested to substitute that are qualified? So those are things we can work on our end, but I'm glad to hear the teachers speaking up.
Yeah, and thank you for this detailed list, because it's hard for us when we hear very general statements like we're overworked, okay? I'm overworked, but like to get really clear examples, that allows us to make changes. So continue to, the 6/5, the duty, all of these different pieces, the PBIS, the paperwork that is involved, that was, those are things that if you can continue to get us examples of really clear, discrete issues, then we can help make changes. Well, not us, we just support
can
the changes. Except this grant, I really do want to look into this grant. I really do. I might do a little behind the scenes. Oh, we're recording? But
She may look into.
yeah, I mean, I run grants, and I'll tell you, honestly, a lot of the grants that I'm on, schools are dropping like flies, because they're like, I'm sorry, we can't fulfill your requirements. So, it's not unique, because a lot of schools are being asked to do things that they just don't have the bandwidth to do right now. So, just gonna put that out there. But in any case, if you could continue to gather this information and then be like one voice, so we get, like, understand what is a trend, not just one person who, might, we want solutions and examples that we can help provide solutions for the administrative staff and the principals, who I know are also overworked and stretched thin. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one other thing before you go, the clearer mitigation and protocol for COVID, I would like to see that too, because actually I research a lot on the internet, and my husband tested positive last couple weeks ago, and so he, like trying to figure out can he go out with a mask? Can he not go out with a mask? So I get it, because even the CDC is not clear. So I think that's something that it would be nice if our nurse worked on that, and kind of like a little tree that says, if you're this, you do this. If you're this, you do this, and with a timeline. And so I agree that information obviously is probably not clear here, but it's not clear anywhere, unfortunately, and they keep changing it on us. So,
If I may on that.
Yeah.
Chris Alexander has worked hard with Dana, the nurse, to make those final changes that we talked about of adopting the CDC guideline, the new ones, on quarantining, returning, and stuff like that. And they got that just finished up today.
perfect.
And there was the language I had shared with all of you. Then there was subsequent charts that were in the document and other stuff that had to be changed too. So there was a little more to it than just that language. But they did get that done, and we're going to be getting. It'll be up on the website if it's not already, and we will message out to folks that change is there. And hopefully it's certainly simpler and it's clearer, and it reflects the current CDC guidelines on that.
Great. And no teacher should ever come to work if they are really sick and don't
Yep.
feel that they should be.
Regardless of
What anybody
this is
says.
going to be a list. If a teacher is sick, they
Right.
should not come to school. If a
Yeah.
kid is sick, they should not come to school.
Yeah.
Like, it's
If they don't feel up to working, they should stay home.
Yeah.
So, just like we tell our parents, if your kid has a runny nose, please keep them home.
Awesome,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our first information and discussion item, facilities planning. I believe Dr. Sweeney is going to give us an update on the fire alarm system at the middle school.
I'm going to give you a layman's update
Yeah.
on the fire alarm system. I spoke with John about it at length last week, and we had a conversation again today. But so the panel is fried and done, and he's working with the contractor to get that replaced because of parts and some other stuff that has to go in. We're looking at probably 4 to 5 weeks on the outside before it is replaced. He's also working with schools facility board to share the cost on that. And we're still probably, and I'm giving you a rough number, we're still probably going to be in the $40,000 range on our end of that. It's
For the panel and
the panel. We can't be grandfathered in on the new. These signals have not just the audio, but they have the light thing that goes, and so there's a replacement of some other things that go with it. But he's certainly working on that, and in the meantime, we're in compliance with the law for monitoring. That's part of the reason he's not here tonight. He was able, during the daytime, he's got a regular schedule of people. I believe during the daytime it's every 2 hours they have to walk the entire campus and make sure, and then at night I believe it's every 4 hours.
Okay.
24/7. And so he's got moved a custodial staff from McDowell Mountain to there starting this evening. Will be there on the evening shift doing other work and doing that monitoring. They have to check it off. And then, you know, he and Rick Harris are stepping up on the weekends, and they have I believe it's every 4 hours on the weekends when it's not occupied. And, you know, one of them's going over there at 2 o'clock in the
Can we
morning.
pay
They
them a
shouldn't-
stipend to do this extra work?
Excuse
I
me?
mean, I know John's salary, Rick is, I mean, are they?
There's a stipend Rick has for these sorts of things, so, you know, it's more of an inconvenience than it is a monetary thing at this time, but he has a plan in place to, A, be in compliance with it until it's repaired, and then B, get it repaired. And I say 4 to 5 weeks on the outside. I think we're both hopeful it could get done sooner, but that's that.
And Krista said, if anybody had any questions that Dr. Sweeney didn't have the answer to, which I'm sure you have most of it, that John is available by cell phone.
Yes. No, I think that's about the level of update that we needed at this point in time. And we really, really appreciate, you know, the dedication of our staff and stepping up, and because truthfully, they could say, no, I'm not gonna go to the school at 2 a.m.
Right.
It's not really part of their standard duties, so we appreciate that they're willing to do those things for us during this time. All right, next we have continued discussion of site consolidation. We do have some information which is just in our board packet, which is just information that has been shared previously. We had said in the last meeting that we would continue discussion into this meeting. My main, purpose for getting it on this meeting agenda is I think we really need to discuss moving forward with having an official board-sponsored committee brought together that is, parents, community members, staff members, et cetera, so that we can really dig into this topic. And I say dig in, and that makes it sound like it's gonna take a lot of time, but we truthfully don't have a lot of time, because if we're gonna move forward with the plan based on the projections that we've been given from John in terms of a timeline, we do need to move quickly, but we need to make sure that we're getting at least some level of input from the stakeholders, so that we as a board and district admin aren't just unilaterally making decisions about what happens that affects our entire district.
Well, you can't make a unilateral decision anyway, because the state says that you have to hold 2 public meetings before you can close a school.
Right.
So, so if we're looking to truly close McDowell Mountain, probably the 23 to 24 school, or start them at the middle school for the 23-24 school year, so basically at the end of next summer. Yeah, you're right, that would need to start moving, because you have to hold 2 public meetings just on that topic.
Right.
We would move them 24, 25.
Yeah, we
Or did
talked about
we talked about
doing it the 23 to, like, that
Oh,
they
yeah.
would start there in 23. That's a year and a half from now. To say that we're gonna keep McDowell open for another 2.5 years, that's a lot of expenses, and there's a lot of work that needs done at that school. Their air conditioner did not work this summer, so, teachers were in there sweating their tushies off, and I went to Meet Your Teacher Day just to do a walk around, and it was hot. And they had done their trainings, and there were new parents in there, and kindergartners, and all the littles. So I'm afraid that we may see the same thing come this summer, and we're just dumping good money into bad systems. So,
Your comment or suggestion for a committee is really good. Back in the early 90s, I was on a facility committee before we built the high school. And it wasn't just about the high school. We were growing like crazy as a town at the time, but we were trying to look out 5 and 10 years and to see what our needs would be and how we were going to meet those needs and so forth. So I think we're at that stage now. Even though we're declining, it's just as important to use the resources that we're given most appropriately for the students we are given. But I think a short term, like we're talking about, but also what do we need to do now to make 5 years from now better for us?
Exactly.
And 10 years, who knows what's going to happen in 10 years? And some of us won't even be around to worry about it, but I think that's a good idea. And I agree the makeup of that has to be just what you said too. It was back in those days, and it really worked well.
So obviously, since this is a work study session, we can't take any action here. But I think that we'll look to have something formal on our next business meeting agenda, so we can actually start moving forward with having an official board-sponsored committee get started. Does anybody have any other points of discussion around the site consolidation at this time?
Just a quick comment. So, I'm late to this conversation, and I was appreciative of the materials that were made available from the past. So, I really wanted to hear from the board, the interest in pursuing this. So, now that I've heard that, and if we take action at the next board meeting, get a committee going, I will certainly go after that with gusto and get a group together per your guidelines, and
Yeah.
we'll get serious about it.
Yeah, and I think it's just important to be transparent with all the data we have, because I know last time around,
Not so much.
it came as a shock to people and freaked people out, me included. It just was approached completely, just very top down, and I want to make sure that this is seen as an effort throughout our entire school community.
And I think there's a lot of, positives to be gained in different facets, not just from a fiscal responsibility, but
Academic.
yeah, right, like, we are spread thin across multiple sites, and if we condense sites, we might have the opportunity to have better coverage with staff and with teachers and
Shared
offer
resources.
different levels of and types of courses, because we have people all together, in 2 campuses instead of across 3 campuses, right? So there's going to be change pain, absolutely, but I think if we plan it correctly and if we're transparent in the process and get the kind of input that I hope we get from parents and families, we can make it a good thing.
And our admin team, our principals, vice principals, because we don't want them to feel as though we're, consolidating to get anyone out of a job. That is
No.
the last thing we want
No.
to do. We are hoping to have an opportunity where we have more leadership and more opportunities for everyone. So.
Absolutely.
As I've started thinking about this a little bit over the last few days, there's so many pieces to it. And one, if you recall, it seems like a long time ago, but, when Four Peaks was closed, we didn't really close Four Peaks. We
Right.
moved Four Peaks.
Correct.
And we had those 2 separate identities running until whenever that was, 2018
years,
or
yeah.
17, when, we actually consolidated that and made that one school as 4A. So, that's just a piece here too of if there's changes in grade levels and other stuff, do we go from the beginning that there's a new entity that is pre-K through whatever that is, 5th or 6th grade, and a new entity that is 7th through 12, or do you, so there's a lot of little parts to that we'll have to
And there's actually
talk through.
grant opportunities for K-5 schools that aren't available for K-3. And the way our district is
Yeah, we miss
cut up, we
out
actually
on-
miss out on some
Mhm.
dollars that we, so I think exactly what you're saying. We're moving people around, we're not,
Right.
putting the axe.
Yeah, because we're still gonna have those kids, and, it gives the opportunity for more classes. The kids, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, moving to the high school, they have better opportunities for higher math classes, higher science classes, that they can be, intermixed in there.
Culinary arts.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things, right now, we were busing a few kids just over to the high school to take geometry and stuff, and it just enhances those higher level classes, also remedial classes. It gives a lot of options for intervention. And then for the younger kids, the facilities at the middle school are just, it's so amazing compared to what they have right now, that it really does give them much better opportunities, so. There are a lot of positives, I'm sure that as a parent, there's some negatives, but hopefully the positives will outweigh that.
Okay, so our next item on the agenda is capital management, continued discussion of the possibility of sale of district land. We don't have anything super formal planned for this discussion topic. other than just saying that it's definitely an item that I think the board is interested in continuing to look into. The site consolidation piece is probably more of the priority to get up and running at this point in time. And I think once we get that up and running with like a committee established and things like that, then we will probably want to further discuss any potential sale of land, which would start with, actually reaching out to our legal counsel to see what next steps would be, getting advice and recommendation from organizations that participate in assisting school districts with this kind of stuff. Certainly, that is another thing that we as a board don't get to decide for ourselves. We can say, we as a board want the school district to proceed with this, but then it goes up to a vote and the community actually gets to decide if we're allowed to sell the land.
If we do the consolidation, we'll be sitting at 2 empty facilities, so those potentially can be utilized better under another organization politically or public or privately too. So that's why I say that 5-year plan needs to encompass a lot of things.
Yes.
In my mind, the overall mission is to make the best use of the resources that the community's given us. And there's 26,000 people here that we need to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the superintendent and staff have time, and putting together a committee of stakeholders is a great way to start.
On this particular issue, what I hope to get from you tonight is if there's consensus here to really pursue this topic, and it's a complicated one. I know everybody's aware of that, and I'm not sure the audience is aware of that. It's a complicated topic, and so if the consensus is to pursue that, and you say, Patrick, prepare for this, I'm ready to do that. I had a brief conversation with one of our attorneys the other day, and you may recall a few years ago when we had a brief conversation, Stifel's involved in this, and there's a lot of different pieces to this. And so what I would recommend would be, if you'd like to, it certainly warrants its own study session.
Yes.
And it warrants a good couple of hours at least. And if you want to pursue that, then we can line up those people to be here and inform the public in great detail of what's involved with. I mean, in my conversation with one of the attorneys yesterday, he said, "Well, the ballot language would look something like this." And so those are the people who really have the answers to that, and I'm sure they'll all be very willing to be a part. But I didn't want to try to get one or two of those people, on very short notice.
Right.
And what I don't want to do for the public is any misinformation on this. And so
Absolutely.
if that's the desire on that, we can certainly get that in here, whenever you wish. I would say we probably need about a month at least to get everybody's calendars lined up and let them know what we're talking about, but then come back and do a separate session on what's involved with property sales and what you can do with the money and, all that sort of thing.
Well, our next study session's the February 23rd board meeting, so maybe we should shoot for that and at least designate most of that study session to getting information from legal counsel, from Gus Rosenfeld, whoever needs to come, and like you said, informing the public that it's a vote, it's a town vote, it's not, so it's something that has to go on the ballot, so it
Right.
takes time, it's not anything that we can just decide tomorrow, hey, yeah, put up a for sale sign, it doesn't work that way.
Yep.
And also, again, reiterating that if that land does sell, what we can do with the money, because again, I don't think, what?
Yeah,
What
but
we
we
can't
have to
do.
do it.
And what we
Yep.
can't do, well, we can't pay
Do it.
teachers,
Yeah.
unfortunately, so, but I think that's always
Well,
really
we have
important.
time to switch that law. I'd say I am done
Out
with the
there,
school
or,
board,
I mean,
I
one
can
piece could be out there,
advocate
like-
to use that money for teachers.
But I think,
You can't do
in
that.
that same study
I'm
session,
saying I
I'd
wanna
like to
change the law.
see where the progress is
Yeah.
on the consolidation potential as well.
Right.
Because I think that has to be a part of the whole thing. It's just a short term as opposed to the longer term that we're talking about for capital needs, but.
I'm going to just guess off the top of my head, the progress on that, if we're here on the 26th, you don't take action
Until the next, which
yeah,
would
the
be
next
the
week
February 9th.
to authorize the
Yeah.
committee to get, yeah, I would say progress will be minimal. We'll probably have,
So it's all right, just
yeah.
so we,
okay, we'll have a committee formed and maybe have met once or twice, but I would doubt if we're to the point of,
if you don't bring things together, it tends to do this.
yeah.
Yeah, but if we don't do, if we don't do a land study session towards the end of February, then we're looking towards the end of March. And now we're into meet and confer information, contracts.
Yeah.
I think February 23rd, assuming we can make these other important participants' schedules work, I think that would be good.
Yeah, agreed.
Is that a 5 o'clock?
Yes, our
Yeah.
work study sessions are at 5 o'clock.
It ends at 7. We're putting.
Yeah, we usually limit them to 2 hours,
Okay.
Do we
even though
come
Dana
up-
likes to
yeah,
stay.
I'm going to a concert that night, so I will be leaving at 7. Do we need to come up with questions prior to that, or we just sort of start throwing questions at them when they come?
I would think, get me questions now that you have, that, that you want answered, and I'm sure the general course of things would answer some of them, but
Yeah.
if there's something specific that you want to know, let's get all that now, and then we
Like
can.
right now, or you mean?
No. But we
I'm sure
can,
that they would come and kind of make a presentation to us about,
yeah,
in general,
that's
these
the-
are the,
yeah.
Yeah, how we sell them. Is there right of first refusal for the homeowners that back up into it? Like,
no,
those questions I would, and then do we put these other 2 parcels of land up for sale at the same time?
Those are good questions.
yeah, those are all good questions.
I gave you both my questions now.
Okay,
well, he didn't write them down. so you
I
can
know,
email them.
I'll-
All right, any other discussion on this item? All right, sounds like we're good. So next we have continued discussion of contract changes regarding athletic director, high school counselors, and principals. As the board is aware, at the last regular business meeting, Superintendent Glass had brought forward to us, just as information and discussion, the possibility of some changes to the duration of contracts for principals, athletic director, and the counselors. And those individuals weren't all able to attend the meeting that evening to kind of share with us their thoughts and opinions about any changes that might happen to their contracts. So this is on the agenda this evening, and we have members in the audience who might have opinions to share with us. So let's start with the athletic director. It's proposed to change this from a 10-month position to a 12-month position. Do you have any feedback or input for us regarding this change?
No,
No, come up. Don't be shy, come on. We want to hear from you.
Yes.
Athletic directors, Justin, you go this way.
Great, so I wasn't prepared to come up here and talk, but hey. One, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this, because it was news to me. So I do appreciate having the platform and the opportunity to view my opinions. As far as moving to a 12-month contract, I'm not opposed to it. I, in my previous work as an AD, have not had much to do over the summer. I'm just gonna be honest about it. I would normally come in once or twice a week on my own anyway to field a couple emails and do paperwork. Again, I'm not opposed to the idea of it. I just want to make the board aware that I don't know how much work there is to do over the summer with athletics. However, I haven't gone through a summer here at Fountain Hills as the athletic director to know that, to speak on this school district.
So I think maybe part of this is misunderstanding of what happens during the school year versus the summer. So talk a little bit about, you probably, maybe, I'm gonna guess, have everything situated by the end of May.
For the fall.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll have everything situated and ready to go, so that information goes out to our families for the upcoming fall season. Obviously, like I said, I normally come in a couple days anyway, not for a full day, and again, this is just my past experience, but for a couple hours to get information out as it's needed, and communicate, sign-ups or questions that parents have, whatever it may be. I do want to make note that my hours here are very long. With tomorrow's soccer games, it'll be 50 days of events where I've been at school for probably 12 hours or more. And that's not including days where we have multiple events at a time. So that's just 50 days flat. I do get to flex my hours, which I appreciate. However, I do have a lot of responsibilities outside of athletic director that requires me to be at school during the school day. So when I do flex hours, it's normally, I'm in by 9 o'clock. It's not like I come in at 1 or noon, just because I have other responsibilities that need to get done while the kids are in the building. By the end of the year, I think I counted 83 days of home events. So I do appreciate the time off because I spend a lot of time here and I'm very tired. But again, I'm open and willing to do whatever the board decides is necessary. I just hope to be part of that conversation of what that contract would look like.
What would be an ideal contract for you? So it sounds like you can get all of your work done in 10 months at like 60 hours a week, which that in and of itself is not good. But
Yes.
in the summer, would it be like an ideal situation? Would it be a stipend for hours worked?
Yeah, because
Would
I
it
don't want
be-
you to feel like you have a 10-month contract, but then you also have to come in over the summer for a couple days a week and not get paid, like, that's just part of the
Yeah, that's-
10-month contract, that's not right either.
Yeah, we're trying to move away from that,
Yeah.
which is I think that part of these contract issues came about because we want to make sure that people are paid when they're when we're asking them to be here.
Yeah, I think a stipend is something I would entertain for sure, just so, I didn't feel like I had to be there for 8 hours a day every single day, especially if I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs and you're paying me to sit there to twiddle my thumbs. So I would definitely entertain that. I just want to make sure, like I said, that the contract is appropriate, it makes sense. Yeah, to answer your question, this stipend makes sense.
What is your contract right now, does it reflect your additional duties as Dean of Students and Discipline and all of these other tasks? Or is it still geared to being athletic director?
No, it's written out as Dean of Students and Athletic Director, and those duties for Dean of Students vary on whatever my supervisor decides they are.
Other duties as assigned is the.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the common phrase that we all enjoy to use.
So, Evelyn, just for a little clarity, if you were thinking of an extended contract in terms of additional days, that might be, 4 hours one and 4 hours another to equal a day, how many additional days do you think you would need over the summer to compensate you for what you're doing? And
Again, it's hard to answer that question just because I haven't gone through a summer here as athletic director. I don't know, how much the summer entails for me in this position. I know that we do run summer camps, and that goes on during the summer, but again, I don't know how much the AD has, their hand in that beyond scheduling it and setting it up and getting the information out. It's not like the athletic director is present at every single summer camp session,
From your previous district, if you had to guess from there, how many days did you put in the summer?
2
2 days.
a week.
2 days a week.
A week, yes.
So like
Yeah, not all summer.
16 hours or 2
I was
4-hour
normally
days?
probably in, and it was an equivalent size school to Fountain Hills, and I also did middle school, so the same setup here. I was probably in the office 3 or 4 hours those 2 days.
Each day.
Mm-hmm.
So a total of 8 hours a week.
Yes.
So
Okay.
a day a week.
Yeah, sorry, we took a while to get there, huh?
That's okay. No problem. We put you on the spot.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
fine.
All right, so like an additional 8 hours a week. So over those 2 months.
Any other feedback for us?
As far as the contract, no. No. And then if you guys have questions, please, you all have my contact information, feel free to reach out, I'm happy to, have those conversations and get you whatever information you need.
You are very accessible and it has been a delight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Next, we have the counselor contracts, the work calendars. So it was discussed to move those from 11 months to 10.5 months, with counselors potentially being paid a stipend to cover weeks during the summer months. That was, as the board probably remembers, we expressed some concern, like if it shifts from 11 months to 10.5 months, do we really have the coverage that we need for students at the end of the year and prior to the school year starting? Because there can be a lot of schedule changes and just last minute stress before school begins that students feel they need to reach out to the counselor for. So we do have Mr. Brady here. Mr. Brady, do you want to come up and say anything about?
No, Krista said he has to. She said she can't hear from back there, so you have to come up to the mic.
If Krista says so, then you
Yeah,
guys
she
need to, she's our boss.
Are we in favor of 10.5 months?
We want to hear what you're in favor
Yeah,
of.
yeah, you tell
We're
us.
cool, actually.
Well, thank you again, like Ms. Winstead, for giving us an opportunity to speak, especially over the contracts, because contracts is kind of personal. For myself, I feel like we lost a very good counselor last year over a contract, and we fought very hard as counselors to get an addendum to our contract to shift it to 10.5 months, and that was really huge. So to be able to have that and knowing we lost a really good counselor is so disheartening, especially how we're moving forward. But with that, the profession of counseling in itself, the average contract is 9.5 months. So I'm not standing up here saying, hey, let's cut it a month, 2 months, right? But that's kind of the average, is 9.5 months, and the profession itself is going to grow by 10% in the next 10 years. So the demand for counseling in itself is going to be huge. And being in Fountain Hills, whether I'm here or someone else is here, anybody is here, we want good people in Fountain Hills. And how do we draw good people? It's not by, hey, the average is 9.5 or 10, let's give 11 and 11.5 or whatever we're doing. It's, let's see what the other people are doing, let's draw good people. So we get experienced counselors that come in, so we get experienced teachers, so we get experienced staff. And from someone who's been here for 3 years and kind of prides myself on getting back to parents and the community in a timely manner and trying to tackle everything and being responsive and working around the clock as it is. I think as a district, if we handle what we're supposed to do from the top down, meaning we get the 8th grade registration on the calendar at the beginning of the year so we know what day we're going over to orient our 8th graders, get them registered, tour the high school, all of that. We get it on the calendar early February. And we do the registration so we can get the numbers to the registrar and populate the master schedule so we have the numbers. So we can do the checks and balances and the shifts. So by the time May comes, we're focused on other stuff. We're focused on graduation. We can spend the last few weeks balancing classes, making sure, hey, does Johnny want a schedule change? We got to do it now. I know you said you wanted online math, but now you're changing your online whatever, and now you're changing it. We know how that goes, and it creates chaos. So I think whether we're here around the clock or whether we're coming back a week early, if we don't take care of that, we're going to be always in the same situation. If we don't have schedules ready, we're not going to be prepared. And that I don't think has any bearing on contracts. I think that's just what we have to do better as a district with that. And if we do that, I think there's no reason why we can't get everything done, because we get everything done. And then from summer school, as counselors, we are constantly running credit checks. We're constantly communicating with families. At least I am the counselor at the high school, right? So I know I am constantly communicating with families. I'm doing credit checks. I'm reaching out. We're making the phone calls. And with all due respect, there should be no shock that your student needs to take summer school. There should be no shock they failed a class. So I know we get late registration and we get all of this stuff, but we're doing this around the clock. I mean, we're trying to do it now, as a matter of fact, so families don't have to pay for summer school and utilize the resources and utilize the programs we have here to take care of it now and be credit recovery focused. That's my goal right now. So that would eliminate a lot of that in general. That would eliminate a lot of that. But even moving with summer school, we have staff that we hire with a stipend. And that staff, whoever that should be, if it is a counselor who wants to do it with a stipend, or another party should be trained, if it's a third party, to answer the questions and the processes and communicate the grades and all of that. And as counselors, we can certainly hand that over to whoever that is. Hey, Johnny needs this class, and Jimmy needs this class, and Sandy needs that class. And the transition should be should be smooth. So from someone who's been here and seen the process, I think it's so feasible to reduce it down to that 10.5, or again, I'm not asking for 9.5, I'm just saying the average. But I think it's so feasible to do if we do everything that we should be doing.
With 400 or 500 students, depending on how you look at it, how many counselors should we have right now?
Well, in a big school, I mean, it's, caseloads of 500 aren't that uncommon. In 350, probably it would be someone's perfect world in your A through BE or however that works. So it's not, if we're organized, it's feasible, in my opinion. It's a lot of work, absolutely. But it's feasible if we're communicating and doing what we should. So.
You're still doing the scheduling for students in the high school? Who does that now?
I'm kind of doing everything. Right.
I can talk to you forever about it, how many students you're going to send me next year.
We got about 30 confirmed right now.
How many in my class? That's
We got 30 confirmed, but only 4 that want to go to that. We're going to have to reschedule our little field trip for that.
So I'll ask a similar
Yeah,
question that
please.
I asked Ms. Nguyen.
Mhm.
It sounds like you can get a lot of these things completed in April, beginning of May, before graduation hits, if you have the right support. What support is needed to get that stuff done so you're not on the hook to be here over the summer to assist with the things that we were concerned about?
I mean, right now, we need to get things on the calendar. We don't have anything scheduled. At least on the council, not to my knowledge, we're not going over to the middle school, nothing's scheduled. We don't have a plan right now. So that's what we need to do right now, and that's the support that I think we need.
So then you'll know the 8th graders coming into 9th grade, so you can do the master schedule. And
Correct.
does the registrar help sort those things out?
So when we go in there, the registrar will turn on the platform. So we'll go into the 8th grade, we'll do a day or 2 presentation. We'll talk about the different diplomas, we'll talk about the credit tracks and average course loads, what you should be taking, all that good stuff. We'll come back in a second day. Typically in the past we have parent night, so we go to the kids first, present, and then we host a parent night at night. Then we would go back the second day, or the third day, excuse me, and we do the registration. So we'd go in, registrar would open up the platform, the kids would just go right in and pick their classes. We would kind of go down there and walk them through it. Once they were done with that, they'd close out, and then the registrar was able to kind of run the numbers from there. Same thing with the high school. If we did it this year, being only myself, we'd focus 1 grade at a time, go in, we'd do the same presentation type of style. Hey kids, remember we're this many credits, make sure you're on track for this. Same thing, open up the platform, have those kids register. Once they register, we close it out, go to the next grade. And that's just needs to be coordinated still. And that's nothing to point in anyone's fault. We have a calendar from last year. It's got to go through, hey, we did it this day last year, but it's got to avoid chaos, we have to do that like ASAP. So.
You have time to do guidance counseling in terms of post-high school?
I'm kind of one-stop shop. They come down. There's kids that are down there all the time. I was talking to a family at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning. They emailed me and I was at the gym and I said, "You're up, I'm up, you want me to call you?" I called them. So, I mean, I'll make time to any guidance counseling or stay late for any family. I know myself. Do the kids utilize it? How do we get them to utilize it? I could stand on my head and spit nickels like my mom used to say, and I would for all these kids, but do they utilize it? You know what I mean? I don't know. So that's how do we get them to come to us? Even credit recovery, I go in the classes, I've been in all week, and just a response from them, even with that. So how do we get them to engage, to talk about that better? It's another topic, probably.
Important.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
So, because I was not the advocate of changing to 10.5 months, just having my kids go through high school. I know that during the summer things change and stuff. So what happens to the kids who complete summer school and have that credit recovery? Now, who's going to alter their schedule before they show up on the first day and their schedule's not done?
We never hold kids back. So even now, if a kid failed, this we've always done, if a kid failed first semester English, they go on to the second semester, make it up in the summer. If they failed the whole year, they go on to 10th grade regardless. So their schedule necessarily wouldn't change, but their path into credit recovery would change. So are we working on it after school? Are we embedding a period in the day where you're in the library? So some of those semantics may change, but course-wise wouldn't too much.
Okay, and then Fountain Hills is notorious for being transient, that during the summer, we seem to get a lot of registrations. So who will be in charge of making sure that those new families are registered and that those course schedules are done if the counselors are gone for 6 weeks?
So the registrations, I mean, I don't know the registrar contract, obviously, and they do the bulk of that. From the counseling perspective, the registrar completes the file, hands it over, and we review it and contact the parent. Those are pretty quick or pretty long, depending on your customer service, like obviously, you know. And for me, if it goes back to closing out the year right to starting the year right? If we close out strong and correct, then we can open that way. And those first 2 weeks can be spent doing the registration meetings, cleaning up a little bit of changes because there shouldn't be much. But the first 2 weeks back should always be bringing the new families in, especially that first week, getting them the schedule, following up on any emails and stuff. And I think if we take care of everything to close out the school year, that will resolve itself, in my opinion, especially if there's 2 counselors or more than 1 counselor, or, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jimmy, what does a 10.5 month, what does that actually mean in terms of how many weeks are you there at the end of the year and how many are you there before the start?
I would say 2 before, 2 after. Yeah, it would be fair and realistic, and for the most part.
2 before, 2 after.
That's
That only leaves 8 weeks then. There's
and
only
that's
10.
an 11-month contract.
Yeah, that's an
Oh, is it?
11-month contract.
One and
So,
one?
that's what I'm saying,
Would
is
you like
that,
to-
like,
no.
on a
That's
10 and a
how
half,
it's
you
been.
would be done June 1st, and you wouldn't come back until July 15th.
So I came back July 20-something, the week before,
Well, 'cause
something this year.
The high school office is closed until like the 25th or something like that.
We
So-
came a week, we came back the week before teachers, something like that, this year. I'd have to look at it. It was addendum, to be honest with you, they changed it so many times, I'd have to go check the addendum and actually give you the correct dates because it was issued incorrect twice. So I don't want to misspeak on it,
Sure.
but, and how that's gonna work out to 10.5 months.
So you would like to work 2 weeks after graduation and then come back 2 weeks before school starts?
I would like to,
That's 11 months.
I don't know.
Sorry, you're not signing a
yeah,
contract.
I'm not signing a contract now, so.
Just like I asked Ms. Nguyen, what would be your ideal date?
Like, if you're able to get everything done the way you're saying that you would
I
like
think-
to
I
have
think for
everything
me,
done,
I'm
are
trying
you
to think
done
of
when
Fountain Hills.
students and teachers are
Yeah,
done?
yeah. I'm trying to think of Fountain Hills as a future, like, and you're sticking with this, like, why go through all this to develop a contract for anybody here and then change it, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to think in terms of that. I think Jimmy Brady, yeah, I think I could do it a week and a week, and if we take care of everything, if me and Mr. Hartman work together and Mr. Alexander, and we get all this stuff taken care of, then I don't think we need more time than that, I really don't.
So it's
I
working more
honestly don't.
efficiently
Yeah.
and clarifying roles and responsibilities would.
At the end of the day, it's a salaried position and it requires working past 3 o'clock, and that requires doing that in crunch time to get things done. So the last month of school, I think people are on cloud 9. If you think you should be out the door at 3 o'clock on any school day, like I'm here all the time. So to get the stuff done under the contract time, I don't think is an issue as long as we're working together on it, whether that's running right out the door at 3, which never happens, or staying till 6:30, which happens a lot. You know what I mean? Especially in the beginning and the end of the year.
Kim, at our board meeting or 2 ago, we talked about one-stop at registration in the district.
Like a central location for
Yeah.
all registration.
Right, your parents and their families come in, if they got 3 kids for 3 different schools, they go to one place and get all kids. What do you think of that?
I think that would be awesome, because I think there's so many moving parts. We saw it this year with the registrar issues at the other 2 schools, and then we had a registrar leave, and then it was, we never have a system in place, we have a person, and that's my perception in 3 years, and when that person leaves, it's like, well, what do we do? And it's like, oh, they did that. Yeah, well, if they don't work here, you can't call them all the time. So that's my perception.
Well,
of
we're
it
still
is-
gonna call you if you don't work
Yeah,
here.
well, hopefully I'm still here. That's what we're talking about. My kid slips. I can't prepare it. But yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
so I have one more question.
Yeah, please, I'm open
You know,
for all.
wrap it up in here.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it sounds like you might be really busy because apparently 60% of our seniors do not have their community service hours. I'd like that on the board agenda, and I'd like to scare those kids. We are not waiving them.
No,
this
we're
year.
not
So
waiving
that,
them.
We're
that
not
that's
waiving
something though that we recently started discussing, that in years past, when I was doing the Key Club last year, and I'm not running it this year, inadvertently to get the service hours as part of the club and being the senior counselor, we held Saturday campus cleanups, and they're successful. We cleaned the crap out of the one section of the campus all day, and it looked amazing. John Flynn went around and pointed areas, and it looked great, and kids had fun, and they got hours, and we hosted 3 of them, and for the kids who didn't need service hours, we had other kids in the library doing credit recovery, and that would get chunks of hours just right there for these kids. And we look around, there's plenty of stuff to be picked up and intended to. at
And the
times.
elementary school could really use duty help, like recess. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that there's some cleaning that could be done. They could come and help direct traffic, whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of
so
stuff to
that's a
do
lot
in
of
this
extra
district.
hours if you.
I don't give
taken
my
those kids
seniors that I have from Fountain Hills any slack. I
No.
say, how many years, are you all done? Oh, no, I don't know. Don't come to me in the
Yeah.
middle of May and tell me that you can't graduate or walk because you won't.
Well, from my mouth to your ears, I was just in every English class for those seniors all week, drilling it in their heads, and we'll see. So. But I will, we can advertise, if you guys, obviously if anyone has any ideas or knows anyone in the community, please send them to me, I'll send them out in mass
I mean,
communication.
they could run the
and
scoreboard
obviously
at
that-
soccer, so Miss Wynn can have some free time.
And Little League is
so
starting,
many-
they're gonna need help.
Sure.
I'm sure Mr. Kevin at the elementary could put your kids to work, so I suggest you get with him and
Sure.
find out
Cool.
what can be done.
Little League will be starting, they always need
I
help.
just said that.
Oh, you said that? Sorry.
Look, don't tread on my
It's his
baseball.
hand. I know.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you for speaking, guys, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Jimmy.
All right, and then the last is the counselors, or excuse me, the principals. 12 months for building principals. This adds 1 additional month and changes their general leave compensation to vacation days. So I know all of the principals were here at the last meeting and kind of weighed in a little bit, but since we're revisiting the topic, we're not going to exclude you. Do you have any, views or opinions that you would like to share on potential changes to your contract
Krista
duration?
says,
Yeah, Krista said in order for it to be in the minutes, she can't hear them from here. So if you
Yeah.
have a comment, could you please come up so she can hear you?
there's room for 3 of you up there.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't want to get singled out, you can do it as a group, it's okay.
And for the record, I want to clarify, the AD's contract is now currently 11 months. We were saying 10 months. They were trying to change it from 11 to 12, but the AD's contract is also an 11-month contract,
Okay.
So,
according to Ms. Nguyen.
oh, okay, because yeah, in the information that we received, they
It said
wanted
it
to make it
was-
a
yeah.
12-month from a
From
10-month.
Yeah.
But
so-
it's actually 11 months right now?
Yeah, so we want to,
Okay.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
thank you.
and you want to keep it 11 months.
She would like to keep it the way it is.
You just talked to Dr. Sweeney. You just talked to Dr. Sweeney.
All right, gentlemen,
Yeah.
opinions.
What summer plans do you have?
Thank you, everyone. Welcome, Dr. Sweeney. Sorry to steal thunder from last time when we kind of talked about it, but for those of you who weren't here, to Jill's point, having experienced that as a parent, it is frustrating when you can't get a hold of anyone in the summer. So I'm happy, totally happy to go 12 a month. I think any of us who have worked in the school district know that it's obviously more downtime when the kids aren't there and you're catching up on administrative stuff and kind of have time to regroup and plan for next year. to steal from Miss Wynn, I have not experienced a summer here yet. Was hired May 9th, and then the first contract date was July 23rd, but there was some pro bono work in there because it's not possible otherwise, but I think looking forward to this summer, it'll be nice to transition from one school year to the next with Mr. Brady, with Ms. Wynn, with Jessica Kane, who's not here, and whatever office staff isn't there, to kind of cohesively move into the next year. So, been 12 months everywhere else I've been, can only go on that. Yes, there's downtime, but it's how should we say, a little easier to get things done without the teachers and kids that we love very much there. But you're focused and can take a breath and really catch up and prepare. So, I guess the metaphor would be not, cramming for the exam a few days before, but maybe starting to study a little bit each night in advance. So totally in favor of it, would have no problem being 12 months, and I think it's a good idea from a high school standpoint.
Would you still close the office for a certain period of time?
I think that could be a discussion. I do believe that, in as much as we all love it here, we do, I do believe in the benefit of everybody in the office kind of getting a week or so off the grid, myself included, if possible, just to kind of collectively take a breath and move on for the next year. So I think we could talk about if at other schools I've been at, the office did not close, but there was always somebody there to cover it. So it'd be a little intimidating for me, but I think I can answer phones for a day or two, as long as somebody showed me how to work all those buttons. I'm just kidding, I'm half kidding. But I think what we've done in previous schools is there was a vacation calendar that went around in May, and we all kind of signed up when we were going to be gone, and we made sure that there was always at least one administrator there, maybe one office staff. It would be different here because we have a smaller office, but if there was a few days where it looked like no one was going to be there, we would figure it out like a puzzle, and there would be no parents ever calling and not getting a hold of somebody if we chose not to close the office. If you still wanted to close the office, then the community would have to understand that no one was answering the phone that week, but when open, the phone was always answered.
And maybe that's part of it is maybe shortening that time span between, because they close like right after summer school, so it's like June 26th or whatever, and then it's closed till like July 23rd. That's a long time in a small town to not be able to reach anybody.
Especially if you're a family who's moved in over the summer and
Right.
you expect that in the district you came from, somebody's there and you're like, excuse me?
And the
I
district
can't
office is
register my
open.
kids for school?
And so if we had a central registration, that would cut down on some of that, but
Yeah.
even still, people still want to take tours, they want to hear about classes, it's just, I don't like the hands-off piece of being closed for so long. So.
Yeah, and I mean, no one would be surprised to be closed for 4th of July week.
Right, exactly,
Right,
that's what I'm
so,
thinking, like,
you
if
know.
you close for like from July, 1st to the 14th, and shorten that into like a 2-week period as opposed to a month. So.
Although he's willing to work his 12 months, so.
Well, he
Well-
does get vacation time though, so.
Yes.
So I do have a question though, right now, nobody else is 12 months, so if you're the Lone Ranger sitting there, I would think, now, if your leave days become vacation days, you're gonna wanna use some vacation days. And so then we have an empty building again unless we have classified employees, support staff for 12 months, so.
Well, I think if we came up, or you all came up, or when we want to be open and when we don't, I think then we can take that back to our sites and say, okay, how are we going to do this?
Right.
So that, as we're never like alone there per se, but there's enough people there. And if we come up with that decision soon enough, we can kind of play around with it and put the puzzle together so that it's efficient. And to Jimmy's point, maybe it's more efficient if if everybody, we shut down for 10 days around 4th of July, but then other than that, there was nobody there then.
Right.
And we get the word out, but then the rest of the summer, there's some of us there, I'd be in favor of that.
So yeah, so your vacation time is this, and then whatever extra vacation time you have becomes general leave. So it's kind of like a half and half when it came to your vacation. So the school district designates from the 1st to the 14th of July, you're on vacation, and then any additional is general leave.
Yeah,
So-
correct, and there's always a, wedding in Europe that was 2 years in the making, and we accommodate for, extra stuff like that, but for,
That was very specific.
Yeah.
for the record, I'm not getting married in Europe. No, but I think we saw it work in a big school for a long time with, and again, I'm not by no means mandating this, but we saw the proverbial puzzle work so that there wasn't a lone ranger and everybody got their time off.
So definitely a conversation for me and confer to see, but it's just interesting to hear your ideas and your thoughts on it.
So the July tours for Mr. Moore.
Alright, so this is, I have been there over the course of the summer, and I'm still figuring things out, because where I came from, Colorado, they just assign you days. So if you're a principal or an assistant principal, you work 215 days. And once you reach those 215 days, and there's the breaks in there, and our district did shut down. Every building shut down from the end of the second week of June to the middle of, or the second week in July. The entire district was dark. You could go to the district office, things like that. So I guess I would be curious, and then we ran modified summer hours. And so when the building was open, it was open from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And so that's when people could come up there and meet, things like that. So I would be interested. I don't have a problem being here over the course of the summer. I would be interested in modified hours, things like that. I experienced last summer with even our classified staff who was there until, I believe, July 20th. They were working 4 10s. And so they were at the building from 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day in the summer, and it just seemed odd and weird. And so spreading things out would be great, but I wouldn't have a problem doing it, because like Chris said, for the first time he's been right. There's several ways to sort of spread things out and get things prepared, because the one takeaway from this meeting is there's a lot of hats. Sometimes it feels like you're building the plane as you're flying it. Who knows what variation or variant or whatever is going to surface in August, and there's time to prepare for that. So having a little bit of downtime just to prepare for things and get geared up for the next year would be great. So, I would be, a lot of it's probably meet and confer type stuff, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, but we still like to hear from you. So
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason we want this is we don't want you working without getting paid. So if you're in an 11-month contract, but you are working ridiculous amount of hours and you're in for 12 months, we want to make sure that you're compensated fairly. But we also understand the importance of taking breaks, especially with such an intense job like you all have. We don't want you to work you to the bone either.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, we do, we just want to pay.
Leave it to Jill.
Oh, they know I'm joking.
Wow, they left a new guy at home.
Yeah, they saved the best for last. So,
Oh, he fits right in.
but
You're
I will say I do want to thank Dr. Sweeney for your time last week, and I do also, in all seriousness, my staff was very appreciative of you coming over for the meet and greet. That went a long way with them, so thank you. And on a serious note, on a not so serious note, it's the first time being in a pre-K through 3 building. It's the first time that I've felt tall in my life. So this is a wake-up call. So, but in all seriousness, thank you for your time that you met with me and with my staff. So, in terms of the contract, I couldn't. I'll reiterate what Jeff said. My middle school that I was at in Indiana, It was set amount of days, so I was 230 days, the high school principal was 240, and all elementary, there were 3 elementary principals, they were 210. So it just varied. Now, the middle school and high school where I was at in Indiana were connected. So the secretary at the high school took all calls, and then myself and the high school principal worked within our office, and then if they needed to transfer those calls, it would come to either he or my office. So I have no problem with the 12-month contract. Like I said, I'm used to it coming from Indiana. So, but I think what Jeff said is what I'm used to, and like I said, I'm more than happy to help with the process. So, but it's common from where I came from, so it wouldn't be a change for me.
And did your school close at any time during the summer?
No, 4th of July. But we had a moratorium week for sports, so the middle school would always mimic what the high school was closed down, and then we had a district moratorium week because we wanted kids to go on vacation and do those things that kids need to be doing. So we had 2 weeks in the summer that there were moratorium. The state, Indiana State, closed it down, and then we had one of our district would close down, so we had 2 weeks in the summer where we were not open. Other than that, the middle school and high school were always open.
Good information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, well, those were all of our items for this evening. The next item is just governing board reports. I'll start with you, Mrs. Reed. Anything to report?
I went and did a walk around McDowell Mountain. I love going there. I don't get in there enough, but I had to drop something off, so it gave me a good opportunity to pop my head in and just walk around. So I'm hoping to be able to do that at the other 2 schools as well, and just give some smiles and check things out.
Tell kids to go back to class.
And tell kids to go back to class. If you need me to come, I will make sure they're back in class. So I still know most of those kids. No, so it was really good. I had the opportunity to chat with a few teachers, and I got to see the little preschool kids with their little hands on their hips walking down the hall so nicely. And I popped my head into Miss Helm's class, which she is in 1st grade, and they were doing a little slide presentation, so it was kind of dark in there. So as I worked my way in, the kids noticed me, and they decided it was interview time. So I got interviewed by the 1st graders, and they wanted to know what I was doing and what, if I had kids, and where my kids went to college, and how much I see my kids now, which then in turn went to rattlesnakes. And the next thing you know, it was a whole conversation about rattlesnakes. So I just loved being there, and I thank the McDowell Mountain teachers for welcoming me in. So it was great. So expect to see me at your other schools.
Mr. Sarr?
I'm good.
Dr. Bernard?
Basketball games, very exciting. I'm gonna say I love that they're live streamed. I'll say that again. And thanks to our staff who has been dealing with sickness, COVID, and kids being sick, and teachers being sick, and everybody just really stretched thin, and they just do amazing work. And I'm just very thankful for our district. Okay.
Mrs. Rittenhouse, yes.
I have no governing board report, sorry.
That's okay. I don't have a report either, but I will echo Wendy's sentiments about our staff and just say how much I appreciate everybody, including parents and students, being flexible as we've had to pivot to, remote instruction, and then have been able to come back to in-person instruction, and hopefully it will remain that way. But if we have to pivot again, please know that we do it with the safety of our staff and our students in mind, and it's not a light choice. We realize the position that puts families in when we have to go to remote, but we definitely do it because we want to keep students and staff safe and healthy. All right, future action. If you'd like to see an item on a future governing board meeting agenda, please reach out to Krista. Dates of upcoming meetings: we have our next business meeting on Wednesday, February 9th here at 6:30 p.m. And then Wednesday, February 23rd will be our next work study session starting at 5 p.m. And with that, I move that we adjourn. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And thank you PTO for our cookies.
Yeah, thank you for.
Made my milk and cookies tonight.
Right? I think I hide them because some people in my house like to eat.